Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Karla Eli Show. I'm your host, Karla Eli, and I'm here to guide you towards wisdom so that you may unlock your feminine energy essence to have and build a life of abundance. I'm so excited to be back. I know that it's been a couple of months now that I said I was going to be back, and then I didn't, but I'm going to be so vulnerable and open with all of you guys here, all you ladies here. I have been going through I guess you could say, a new survival journey, and I'm finally out of it. And now I have my own routine. I have so many more great guests coming on the show, and I'm ready to get back into creating content for all of you ladies where we discuss dating, relationships, breaking generational curses, feminine energy, and all that good jazz. And without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce our wonderful guest today. Her name is Angelica Castillo. She's one of my students and she's graduated from so many different classes with me. What can I say? And I'm so proud of her and for the woman that she is and has become today. So please, Angelica, introduce yourself. Name, relationship status, age, and occupation.
Yeah, so my name is Angelica Castillo. I'm 26 years old, which feels, oh my God, I can't believe I'm like hitting late 20s. Damn. But, I'm 26 years old now. I started off with Carla, I would say like around 2 years ago now. Has it been 2 years, Carla?
It's
It's been
been
two
two
years.
years.
It's been
Mhm.
2 years. And I discovered her through TikTok. I remember I was sitting on my bed and I was just going through a traumatic breakup. And I feel like that happens to a lot of us. We're just sitting on our beds. And I was just like, God, give me a sign. Like, give me a sign. Like, I need a sign on how to elevate myself and how to just push forward. And I was scrolling through TikTok. And then Carla came up. And I was like, this is a sign. We love that. And since then, I decided to take her courses, and her courses have really helped me elevate myself. I started off with a really low self-esteem because getting out of a traumatic breakup will really just push you to hit rock bottom. And I was pretty much rock bottom. Carla saw me. She saw me. I was going through a rough character development process. And then now I can say that I'm at a different place in my life. I'm currently single. I am currently not on the apps. I'm taking a short break from them just because it can be very overwhelming. And I feel like, sometimes it's good to regenerate yourself. And I just took this time to regenerate myself and just breathe. I will be back though. We will be back. We will find some good men out there. Me and Carla, we're gonna have a very interesting conversation about that. Occupation wise, I'm currently in the law field. I'm currently a student and, want to be an attorney, guys. I had a lot of career changes and I feel like a lot of it has to do with personal development too. Once you really hit those personal development goals, you really start just, I don't know, I go through these really weird phases where I'm just like, what am I doing with my life? I want to do this. I want to do that. So, and I feel like that comes with dating too. I want to try different things. So, yeah, I've been knowing Carla for the past 2 years. It's insane. We've met in person. I'm planning a trip this year, sometime in the summer to California, just to de-stress from all the chaos and mayhem and the gloominess of Chicago. If you live in Chicago, you know what I'm talking about. It's just so cold right now.
No, well, thank you so much for that introduction. And yes, I love that we were able to meet in person. And I got to almost mentor you one-on-one in person whenever we did meet, which was such a lovely experience. And again, thank you for your vulnerability. This conversation is going to be filled with vulnerability, woman-to-woman conversations that we've all have been through or are currently going through. So if you are single, elevating, graduating from your pick-me-sha culture and really on this self-discovery journey. I think this conversation is going to do you so well. Because one thing that I want to reintroduce on the Karla Eli show is just our humanity. We are not perfect. We're human. We have insecurities. We have doubts. We are human. So, um, Angelica, would you mind sharing that aspect of yourself on the healing, your healing journey? How did you even come to fully make that decision and be like, I'm going to invest in myself and I'm going to get a mindset coach? Because I know that you had a mindset coach and then you had a relationship mentor, which was me. Very blessed and honored to work with you and really see this transformation through these 2 years because it has been 2 years. So what made you take that step? What was the last straw of you saying, enough is enough? I'm done. I want to see change in my life.
Yeah, I would say the last straw was definitely just going through a really toxic relationship. I feel like when you go through a toxic relationship, I don't know if a lot of people can relate to this, but I was wondering, well, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? It's all about self-reflecting. And my final straw was just settling. I'm like, I felt like I settled really bad, but then I wondered, well, why did I settle? I really had a lot of questions as to more as why I decided to do certain things because I feel like I wasn't myself in that relationship. It was a 2-year relationship. It wasn't the best. I feel like I really lost myself there and I had a lot of questions like, why did I tolerate this? Well, why is this happening? And I just thought to myself, I need to heal because I knew that if I hopped into another relationship, rebounding pretty much per se, it was going to crash and burn me. And I did feel like that was just, I was going to hit borderline rock bottom more than I already was. So I decided to pretty much seek out a pretty much a mentor. I wanted multiple mentors because you can never have too many mentors. I think that's what leads you to success. So I hired Karla. It was amazing. She was like my bestie from Cali. Like she was really, really sweet. Karla is very educated. She also knows what she's talking about. She will be blunt. She will tell you. We've had very harsh conversations. And I think you need someone with that bluntness. You don't need someone who sugarcoats things because you need to hear what you need to hear. I was very stuck on a lot of these men that I dated that just didn't result well. And I was always like questioning, well, why did this happen? Like a lot of my self-worth was like on the table. And Carla was like, no, snap out of it. Like you got to snap out of it. Like you know your worth. And a lot of the things that she's done and said have really like helped me. Like also with friendships, I feel like sometimes friendship could also be toxic. And Carla is always you know, she's very wise with what she says and what she does. I do know that over time she's offered courses. I really do suggest people take them because you can never have too much wisdom in your life. And as someone who's really had multiple like character developments throughout the year, I will say if you get out of a really toxic, hard relationship, take time for yourself, but invest in yourself in that time. That it also includes self-care, love yourself again, because you can't make someone love you if you don't love yourself. I did notice that a lot in me. I was like projecting what I
And
wanted.
yeah, and so speaking on that, like what was like that breaking point that you're like, okay, what, if you don't mind sharing with us, because I know that this is very vulnerable, what did your previous partner do that you were like, okay, this is enough? And what were the thoughts that were racing in your mind? Because I know that when we're looking for a solution, there's so many limiting beliefs that are just like racing in our head. So, what was a situation that really put you on the defense mode, like I'm done? And then what was your thought process through this journey of finding a solution?
Yeah, so I would think that the huge breaking point for me, honestly, was I got cheated on in that 2-year relationship. And I feel like for women, it's a little bit different because when we get cheated on, we love to compare ourselves to the other woman. Well, what did she have that I didn't have? And I think that was something that was racing through my head. I was just like, well, what does she have that I didn't have? And I feel like it was a really toxic thing that I was like looking at her social media. I'm like, well, who is this woman? Like, I was almost like, I feel like we become obsessed with the other woman. It's really odd. I don't know how to describe it, but like I was almost like questioning myself, well, what does she have that I didn't have? And then when my ex decided to pursue something with this woman, I feel like that's when I hit rock bottom and I'm just like, I can't do this. I'm like, I need to love myself because obviously he didn't love me the way I wanted him to love me. And that, it's sad to say, but just because one man doesn't love you doesn't mean somebody else will. I feel like he really put into my head that no one was going to love me. He also told me I was going to stay single forever because like, oh, your standards are too high. And I think when men say that, the toxic ones at least, when they say that your standards are way too high, they're just saying, I can't meet them and I want to lower your self-esteem so you think nobody else will meet them. So I think
Mhm.
that's what I just hit rock bottom. And I was just like, you know what? I need to go out and I need to find someone to help elevate me and help bring me to my old self because I compared myself before and after that relationship. I was like, it's like I went to war. like with myself. I didn't recognize myself. I feel like I lost a lot of that glow that I had going into the relationship because I do feel like people are energy vampires. He was an energy vampire. And coming out of the relationship, I'm like, I don't even recognize myself. I wasn't getting my hair done, my nails weren't done. I was breaking out excessively. I was depressed. I wasn't going out to the places I wanted to. I lost faith in myself, in God. I was just like, what's happening? Like, this isn't who I am. So I seeked out help from, I did the therapy, I did the inner work. I tell people, please take time for yourself. I took like about a year off of the dating world, if it was around it, to really like love myself, focus in myself. Several times I was like, should I go back? But I was like, no. Like, when you're ready to go back into the dating world. I feel like people, a lot of unhealed people are out in the dating world. Please don't do that. Like, the market's already hard as it is, and I feel like it's going to take up more of the market. If you're not healed, you have to heal yourself. It's rough out here.
Yeah, no, no, no. Well, I'm gonna save that last bit that you said towards the end of the conversation because I want to dwell and kind of be in this moment of healing as well. And I feel like the audience or, the ladies who are listening to this now, they need context to who you are. Because a lot of the times people think, oh, well, you were in this toxic relationship because you wanted to. You were accepting the bare minimum because you've never seen something beautiful before. But that's not always the case. Like the reason why, at least in your case, you have high standards and have expectations for men to be men is because you had a good father figure and an established nuclear family. So would you mind sharing where you even received those standards before, having that heartache that you did?
Yeah, so my father is probably the most masculine man that you will ever meet. A lot of people believe that just because we go through these toxic, narcissistic relationships, oh, like you have daddy issues per se, like you don't have a father figure. And that wasn't the case. My father was always present throughout my whole life. He is the most masculine man that anybody can think of. He really set the bar of what I should accept and what I shouldn't. However, what I feel like in my case ended up happening and why I even stuck around in these toxic relationships, I feel like for me, it was more about proving myself. I feel
Mhm.
like, well, why does this person not want me? Like, I know I'm good for myself. And I also feel like this happens to a lot of people. I feel like he caught me at a very like dysfunctional time in my life. I was
Mhm.
dealing through grief, I was dealing through loss. And I feel like when you're in a really vulnerable spot, people could take advantage of you. That's why I tell people don't date when you're in a really vulnerable position because people will take advantage. It's a really cruel world out there, truthfully. But going back to my father, he was probably the most masculine man. He still is the most masculine man ever. Him and my mother have been married, I believe, for like about 30 years at this point. Like, yeah,
Nothing.
for about 30 years. My mother is now a full-time homemaker. She's a housewife now. And I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about the stay-at-home wife. They don't like it. I know, Carla, you know. And I feel like it just has to do with like a lot of hypocrism around that. But like my mom, like she stayed home because my father told her she could. She
Mhm.
could stay home and raise a whole family. When my mom, had 5 children, so it's a lot of children to take care of. And my mom was very skeptical on babysitters just because a lot of like really sketchy cases and like she just wanted to also make sure that they were raised within the same values as my father and her. My mom also comes from a very traditional conservative background. She is one of 7 children and it's a pretty big household as well. My grandfather on that end was also very, very masculine as well. And he pretty much set the bar for my mom to what to look for. My mom
Mhm.
also told me she ran through a couple of really not the greatest men. People say, oh, well, like dating in the 80s was different. My mother even tells me to this day, men have always been good and bad. There's bad apples, there's good apples. You're gonna find some really toxic men. The only difference is now it's more out in the open and we have dating
Mhm.
apps. My mom even told me the other day, imagine a Tinder in like the 80s. That would have been insane. Like like it's just I just can't fathom it too. But my father pretty much he's a full-time provider. My mom, she stays home, and my mom has developed a couple of like
Hobbies.
hobbies, you
Yeah.
know, throughout the time that my dad has pretty much spent being his the full-time provider in the household. Her sons are out of the house. Her sons are out of the house now. I am the last one here, and I hope to meet my person this year and, get engaged. And I want to leave the house, a married woman, which my mother did. My father went and asked for her hand in marriage. And my mom, over the time now, she's become she's enamored herself in a lot of new hobbies. Like she loves to get her nails done. She loves going on her shopping sprees. She likes to take care of herself because raising five kids, it's not easy. She really dedicated
Mhm.
like, oh
Yep.
my God, I say like 20 plus years to
Mhm.
raising children and just making sure that they were, the men that they were and they were ready to leave the house. And now that my father just spends, most of his time working, which he will be retiring soon too, because,
That's good.
my dad's tired. He's tired. His health issues are starting to catch up to him, but he's really stubborn. He wants to keep working because it's that masculine mindset of his. Because he always tells me like, "Well, what am I gonna do?" I'm like, "Play golf. Go play golf. Like, learn how to play
Love
golf." And
that.
he says he doesn't want to,
That's so
but
funny.
he's a very he is the standard of what it's like to be a man, because it was only one check in the house with five children and a wife. My
Mhm.
mom made that check work and feeding all of us, and my dad was working overtime. Sometimes I wouldn't even see my father for like a whole week because he was just working and working. And I do think it caught up to him. Now he's tired, but he was a full-time provider. He still is. My dad gives my mom, money to go get her nails done, to go shopping, to make herself feel beautiful. He gives me also money to get my nails done too. That's that's the tea here. And people love to, like, people feel different ways about that. They're like, well, you're a grown woman. You can't,
No,
have your
okay,
own
let's talk about
money.
that. Actually,
Yes.
let's talk about that. So, the reason why I think that this is so important to bring up context as to Angelica's upbringing is because, like how Angelica was saying, a lot of the times people think like, oh, you're this way because you had a rough childhood or something. But no, it's not the case. Um, however, well, how she said in the earlier part of this conversation that her ex met her at a very low point in her life, which we will talk about after we say this point on your father being able to provide for you in a way. Like that is such a blessing, and I think that that's how it should be. Not all of us have get received that benefit. I know that I did not, but my little sister does. And I don't know if it's because I'm the eldest daughter and like he's my stepdad, even though he's legally my dad. So, but I love that for my sister. I love the fact that my dad does give my sister like her monthly allowance, and it's not like $100. It's like, okay, here's like $600 for you for the month. She's in college right now. She's going to school. You're going to school. And my sister has that financial support from both of my parents for her to move forward in life and really have the time and the energy to focus on who she wants to be. And I think that that's how it should be. That's how it, in a perfect world, that's how women should be supported. I know that not a lot of us have that blessing. I know that I didn't have that growing up. However, I'm here still. I'm still married. I'm healed. I'm happy. I'm healthy. So if you didn't grow up in the same environment that Angelica did or that I did, because even though I didn't have the support, the financial support from my parents from that aspect, I did have a nuclear family and that really helped me move forward in life. You could still succeed. That's what we're trying to tell you. Like, no matter your background, you can overcome whatever it is that you want to overcome. And that's the goal. That's the point of the show. That's the point of the reason why I make videos for all of you ladies who are listening. And I don't think it's a bad thing for a dad to want to support his daughter. That's how it should be. Because guess what? I bet you Angelica knows that at any point that if a guy disrespects her, she's like, oh, hold on, let me call my daddy. Let me call my dad. Let me set things straight. Oh, you think you can talk to me like that? Oh, I don't think so. And unfortunately, ladies, if we don't have this, I don't know if you experience this, Angelica, with other women around you, but I know for me in my case, like I knew that I could be confident with wherever I went with men, and I felt safe because I knew that at any point, if I felt unsafe, I could dial a phone number and a man was going to come and help me. A man, I had that father figure in my life. So I never felt alone. And guess what? The men knew too, and they treated me differently because they knew that I wasn't alone. They didn't see me like, oh, I can mess around with this girl because she has no one. If I mess around with her, um, like she actually can say no. And I don't know if this is making sense. Does this make sense of what I'm trying to say? Like men know who they can mess with or who they can mistreat also based off of that community that a woman has. Does this make sense, Angelica? I don't know if you
Yeah,
experience this.
it makes sense. We like to call people chaotic Chloes,
Yes.
like Karla says, chaotic Chloes. There have been a couple of women that I've met and I've cut off because it's 2025, guys. We don't need to be dealing with toxic individuals in our lives. The friends you make will also make or break you and your mindset. I had a tendency of drawing in a lot of like not really good friends, and I do believe it was the mindset I was holding at the time, but now I've slowly cut a lot of those people out. But a lot of people believe that just because, I'm daddy's girl, oh, you're pretty much like oh, like you're a pygmisha, like what do you think, you're a princess. I feel like a lot of women that say that, and a lot of men will say that too, to me, because I feel like it's a form of intimidation. A lot of people have not grown up, and me and Carla have touched on this several times. A lot of people didn't grow up with good father figures. A lot of people don't know what it's like to have a really good masculine father figure. A lot of women are on survival mode, and so are a lot of men. A lot of men are on survival mode. A lot of men lack really good father figures who have taught them how to be men, how to be gentle with women. I feel like a lot of the times the whole, oh, well, like your daddy's girl, it's a form of intimidation. I feel like they just don't know what to do with you because they know they can mess with you. Like Carla said, they can mess with you because you do have a good father standing behind you. And if somebody messes with you, game over. And I feel like that's why a lot of men stray away from women.
Women like
Well, the
us.
toxic ones, the toxic ones, the toxic ones, they'll stray away from women like me and Carla because we come from really nuclear backgrounds. They know they can mess with us. The gaslighting doesn't work. It's just a bunch of that. When I was in that toxic relationship, my father several times would tell me, "What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Angelica, what are you doing?" And I would sit there and I would tell him, well, I think I can change him, like, oh, I wanted to go back to the way I was. And my father literally told me, if a man doesn't change for you, he doesn't love you. That's it. It's as simple and cut clear. Men know what they want. And he says men are simple. Why do you need to tell someone several times what they need to do or be for you? There's a man out there, he'll drop everything and he'll come right when you need it, like right when you need something. I have met men, and I feel like once I started changing my mindset, like Carla says, it started being in that feminine energy. There are really good men out there. There are men that will drop everything and come to your house. Like, I've talked to several men where I was like sick and they're like, "Do you need something? Can I drop something off for you?" Very masculine, very in that provider mindset. Whereas there's other men that will be like, "Oh, well, that sucks."
Yeah,
Like there's different
no.
types of men.
And let's talk about that. I know that we transitioned into talking about men after you said something about women too
Mhm.
on being a daddy's girl. Yes, ladies. So take note of what Angelica just said. We don't have, it's 2025. We don't have time for women and men who don't value us and see us the way that we see ourselves, who don't really get it. And if you right now are that person who doesn't, like, this might be bringing up a lot of triggers for you because I know that it's really hard to be like, wow, some women just have it like that. Some women just have parental support and like a community. Please listen to what we're saying because you also can benefit from this. Because even if you don't have that community, you can absolutely recreate your narrative and say, I do have the community because here's one thing that we all have. We all have a father in heaven. Like we all have the same father. Yes, we have earthly fathers, but we also have a father in heaven, and he sees us the same. He treats us equally, and he loves us equally. So listen to what we're saying and walk as if you also have this community because you can rebuild your own community, even if it's just women too. Because for Angelica, it was very much her father. And for me, it was my father, but it was mainly my mother. My mom was actually kind of like that. I don't want to say that father figure because she wasn't. She was very feminine, but like she would watch out for me like no other person would. And I was just talking to her about it this last night. I was like, I think I could live without. I was like, sorry, Dad. He was in the background. He was watching TV. I'm like, sorry, Dad, but I think I could live without a father's love, but I could never live without a mother's love. So maybe this father figure wasn't there for you, but if you did have a mother figure, you can also incorporate this into you being able to rest in your feminine. And Angelica said and had a point about usually women who are in survival mode will not understand the soft girl life or soft, not even soft girl, because we're not girls here, we're women, soft women lifestyle or just wise woman lifestyle because they're still kind of just figuring themselves out, and which is normal, which is okay. And but if you're on a journey and in this transition of I want more for myself, it's gonna be a lonely path, or maybe not lonely, but your friends, quote unquote friends, will not be your friends, they will be your mentors. So you'll view them as mentors. And actually, if you're in your 20s, early 20s and mid 20s, I urge you to seek out friends, or really what I mean is mentors who are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. And if you're in your 30s, look for women who already are having and living the dream life that you want for yourself, because it's going to be so normal for you that you will eventually have that as well. So I wanted to touch on that before we continue with the dating aspect. So now, Angelica, you've worked with me. We've built your dating app profile. We've strategically done everything. And one of the conclusions that we both came up with towards the end of the program and towards the end of a lot of like taking breaks and going back into the dating market was the location. So please tell me, what is the dating climate for you right now? Where do you live? You're located in Chicago. Please name the state and please name the culture that you're experiencing, because I am sure that a lot of single women who are in very urbanized communities and very big cities probably feel the same way. And when she's done sharing her experiences and what she's kind of going through on her dating life, I'm going to tell you guys a big secret that I've been holding for a really long time, and it might get political. So please just bear with me. Angelica, take it away.
Yeah, so I live in Chicago, and as we know, the Chicago dating culture is very interesting. I feel like the dating culture in Chicago is pretty divided. There's a lot of, and I've noticed this over time because I have gone in and out of the dating world just simply because it can get very overwhelming. The dating scene in Chicago is really interesting. There's a lot of broken people, I guess you can say, a lot of really broken, toxic people on the dating apps. The reason I say this, not all, but there's some, and I feel like majority of the times it takes up the dating pool here. A lot of very undecisive people, a lot of very toxic individuals, a lot of people who aren't ready for relationships. I always say if you fall within like these three categories, the big three, you shouldn't be dating because the dating scene in Chicago is already as hard as it is, mainly because people here, men here are, I wouldn't say all of them, but majority that I have met have been very like in their feminine energy, very in their feminine energy, very much not in that provider and protective mindset. A lot of them themselves are in survival mode too because it is a pretty chaotic city. A lot of stuff happens. I grew up in the Midway side, so like south side of Chicago, pretty quiet area where I grew up in. A lot of like retired officers, a lot of very, very small rural community. I will say I really loved growing up there because I had a really close-knit environment with a lot of people. Like, the type of neighbors that would say hi to you, like if they saw you outside. The same people that have lived in front of my parents' house have been there for the past like 30 years. Like the same little old lady still lives there, and it's so cute because she always says hi every time she sees me at my parents' house. So um, I ended up moving out because I realized, well, location does matter because I have noticed I have friends that have better success stories than me because they live in the outskirts of Chicago, like a little bit more towards like southern Illinois. And you wouldn't believe the amount of very masculine men that there are out there. And I think it has to do a lot with the way that they're raised because in the city, in the
Let's
city
talk about
it's
it.
yeah in the city it's a little chaotic, and I feel like a lot of people, like I said, are in survival mode, and I feel like the way people are raised here are raised very like, I don't know, like Karla said, like it's not raised they're not raised the best. A lot of people are raised, a lot of single moms here in the city. Nothing wrong with single moms, we love single moms here, but a lot of them don't have that prominent father figure. They don't have that close knit family, a lot of broken families. Like I also looked into it to a lot of broken families, a lot of separated families, and a lot of that like chaotic energy that already happens in Chicago, if you know, is projected onto the children and they're just in survival mode. I have a friend who lives in Southern Illinois and she goes to SIU. She, she went on the apps, downloaded Hinge, Tinder. She was doing three apps at the same time. I have no idea how she was doing it, but she had dates lined up. And she was watching your stuff, Karla. I put her on your stuff, and she told me, she's like, no, she's right. She's like, it depends where you are, because she was located in the city, awful experiences. Then she left the city, more in the outskirts, and the environment changed a lot of more masculine man. Like she would attract, and mainly because of that family orientation.
Yep. Let's talk about it. So the reason why this is crucial and very important, and I'll be discussing this more in the group coaching classes that I'll be offering in January, so on Saturday. Um, it's the values, the morals, and the family structure. I cannot tell you how powerful it is to have a nuclear family. A lot of people like to just say marriage isn't all that, or marriage is whatever. Like, no, why get married? You're limiting your options, blah, blah, blah. Like so many negative things I feel like are in the connotation of marriage that people don't understand. However, I know my audience and I know that you ladies understand the power of marriage. Marriage is all that. Marriage is all that and so much more. And if it's not all that for you, that's because you married the wrong person. And so, in regards to why is it so chaotic in the city versus more rural and more like smaller towns, I guess you could say, is because of the values and the morals that they have. A lot of the times in the city, you are taught to be, I'm just going to say how it is, a little bit more liberal, a little bit more liberal, a little bit more victim mindset oriented, a little bit of more like, no, you can't do it by yourself because all of these things are playing against you. How Angelica was saying, the single mom culture. I know that I have a lot of single moms who listen to me, and we're not talking about you. If you're listening to me as a single mom, we're not referring to you because there's different cultures of single moms. Like there's those single moms who didn't and weren't aware of the impact of being a single mom versus and waking up and wanting to really change their life and the trajectory of their life because they have, a son, a daughter, a son and daughter. And so we're not talking about you. We're talking about those single moms who never evolve. And that really, we're living the consequences of that culture. We're currently experiencing the consequences and dealing with the consequences of having very, very, um, I don't even want to use the term liberal because it's not liberal. It's like extreme left belief systems. And hence why the dating pool right now in the cities are not the healthiest. And I'm so happy to see this kind of like this culture shift of people being more conservative and going back to scripture, going back to Christ, because we know that that does work. We know that that does work successfully. And if you have a tight-knit nuclear family, you can achieve anything. And if you're a single mom listening to this, know that there is hope. I was raised by a single mom. I'm a product of a single mom. And not just a single mom, but I'm a product of also, I'm just going to say how it is, of a mistress who didn't want to be a mistress, but ended up being a mistress anyway. So, and not only that, but a teenage pregnancy too. So just know that you have the capability of raising a woman, a daughter like me, but it's all about your mindset and how you want to change and remake your entire life. However, what I will say, ladies, if you're in the current dating market and you find yourself in a very big city where there's not a lot of travel, for example, like in San Diego, I feel like that's where I met my husband. I was so blessed to have that as my city because I knew that there was going to be Air Force, I knew Marines, Navy. We have amazing universities. We have good hospitals. So there's a lot of doctors. We have a lot of tech companies. So there's a lot of people from all over the country going to San Diego who come from different belief systems and different backgrounds. And I knew from the beginning, I was like, I'm not going to marry someone from California, at least not from Southern California. He needs to be like he needs to be a man. He needs to be someone who values and understands morals and the power of nuclear family. And I ended up marrying someone who didn't have that growing up, but asked me if he ever excuses himself for his bad behavior with saying, oh, it's because I didn't have a family or I didn't have parents. No, not once. But when a man understands the power of family and the power that you have as a woman to bring life into, your marriage, he will never put excuses ever. Okay. So that's like a very hot take. The good men are not in the blue cities. So analyze your maps. This is something that I do with my students one-on-one. Look at where you're located, analyze the demographics. How much money are people making? How are they voting? Why are they voting like this? Which laws do they want to pass? Why is it? Pay attention because all of that affects the dating pool. Like it's a lot bigger than what it seems. And that's why women are having the struggle of like, where are the good men at? There's a lot of good men. They might just not be in your city. Anyway, Angelica, please share with us, um, you know, a little bit of the toxic dating. Like I want to specifically speak on this recent one, the recent voice memo that you sent me about um your date that you went on, that he was a church boy. He made it seem like he was a traditional provider mindset man. But then he said something, and I want you to share with us what he said that took you aback.
Yeah. So I decided to change my type because I feel like as women, we have a type of man we like to go after. And my mother told me, my mom and me, like we're like best friends. She sits down with me and she's like, try dating out of your type. Like give another type of guy a shot. You may never know. You know,
Hmm.
because I have a type. The type of guys I like very athletic guys. I had a thing for Marine boys. Like I know that's a different like
Girl,
that's a
no.
different that's a different conversation. We can literally ramble on all day about that. But I dated this guy for like I would say like about 2 to 3 weeks. Like we actually didn't meet on the apps. We met on Facebook. I don't know if people still use Facebook. I'm ancient. I have a lot of family on there, so I scroll on there here and there. We started talking very casually. You know, what I liked about him, what drew me to him, he seemed to have had a very traditional mindset, meaning men provide, men protect. I take care of my woman. You know, he was very faith-based. He went to church every Sunday. This man never cursed. I never heard him curse. Like he was just he was a man of God, and we love men of God. We love them. But I did notice a little bit of like a shift once like he was persistent. He wanted to date me, and Carla says, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Really get to know this person because people love to be fake. Like Carla has said it several times, people love to be fake. People fake it till they make it. And we were on this date, and he got me flowers. He seemed to be very like into me, and I really like that. We as women, we need to learn how to receive. I was in that receiving mode, but it comes down time to where I told him, if this was going to be something serious, I really wanted a man to provide and protect to me. And he said something really interesting, and I don't know why this happened or how this conversation even like blew up, but he told me that he didn't fully believe in providing 100% for his woman because he said that like if I was his girlfriend, I had to suffer along with him. Like I had to suffer with him in hardships, like suffer. Like we're not talking about like, oh, like honey, like I forgot to like deposit this check, rent's gonna be late. I'm talking about like, no, if I'm going through like a mental struggle, you have to be rock bottom with me, like that type of like struggle. And I just stood there and I was just like, yeah, no, this isn't something that I want. Ladies, we need to learn how to cut a man off when the vibes are just not it or when they don't meet our values and standards. This guy was really interesting because he started off in projecting himself in a certain way, but I feel like when it comes down time to actually step up as a man, you'll notice if a man stays or if he leaves. If he leaves, it's a blessing in disguise, or if he says something toxic like this, it's time to walk away because men like this, it seemed very hypocritical because he was saying, oh, like me as his girlfriend, I had to pretty much suffer alongside with whatever it is he was going through. And I get it, you stick with your you stick with your partner through hardships, but I'm not going to destroy my mental health for you. Like I'm not going to destroy my emotional health for you, and that's such a toxic way of viewing it. And it led me to just not communicating with him ever again because I think he noticed that I felt some type of way about it. Um, I enjoyed the fact that he was close to God and that he was very traditional, so it seemed. But I do feel like you have to avoid people who have that really toxic mentality that I have
Like
to
the
drag
women
people
to
down with me.
suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the women need to, specifically women, because I feel like men, there's a lot of men who are jealous of women. So let's actually talk about that. First of all, did you see the growth though? I hope that you ladies caught on to that. Because what instead of old Angelica would have thought what she would have done, she would have been like, I can change him. I can change him. He believes in God. He has potential. But what you're starting to catch on very quickly, Angelica, is that a man will tell you the truth and the whole truth from the first couple of dates. And it's up to us to decide to actually believe them. Because one thing that
1,000%.
we don't do as women, we don't believe them because we project onto them what we want to see. Oh, it's because he's a church boy. Oh, he comes from a nuclear family. Oh, it's because he says he's a provider. Well, he's acting in a completely different way, right? Because they will tell you what they want and how they will treat you from the first couple of dates and how they view you. And so I'm very happy that Angelica was just like, oh, yeah, this is not for me. And that you broke it off when you did so that you didn't get attached and that you can move on or take a break how you're doing it right now. And so, yes, ladies, whenever, like, okay, I'm gonna give you guys my personal experience when I think that this is what he thought he was giving, but he wasn't. So let me share a little story with you about the quote unquote suffering, because I think that that's the wrong quote or that's the wrong phrase to say. Men need to feel more comfortable saying, I want a woman who can grow with me and wants to grow and achieve all of our dreams together. But see, here, I feel like a lot of men are so selfish that they don't have the capability of a lot of toxic men, right? The capability of saying that because what they want and what they men who think this way, since they're in survival, all they can focus on and all they can think of is how can I use you to get where I want to be? How can I use your womanly power, your feminine essence to help me succeed in life, use you, and then leave you once I have everything I want? That's essentially what he was saying, because I'm assuming that he was in survival mode. Was he?
Yes, he was in survival
Yeah.
mode. Girl, like
Mhm.
he was going through also financial hardships. I tell women this all the time too. Don't, this is gonna sound bad, but don't date men who are going through financial hardships because they will try to drag you down with you.
Yep.
They will try to almost like Carla said, use you as like their personal therapists and sometimes your personal ATM. It's very much that.
Or
Um,
inspiration. Because
yeah.
we do as women, like we're so inspiring and we can creative, we can bounce ideas off of each other so well and eloquently that we give a man the space to do that. And I'm so sick and tired of us doing that, putting ourselves on hold for someone who's not even financially there. Like, ladies, if he's not financially there, he's in survival. He's in survival mode. So all he's going to be thinking about is himself. And sorry to cut you off, Angelica, but I want to share um, my personal scenario of how it worked in my marriage and within my marriage that you can go through hardship together, but both of you benefit from it. It's not just one party benefiting from the hardship that you go together. And so is that okay?
Oh yeah.
Or do you have something to add on to what you were saying?
I was gonna give the example of that that 3 month relationship that I was in. You know who we're talking about, that 3 month relationship we were in. I was going to give that example because of he started off really strong. There was this guy that I was dating in the summer. Like Carla knows the whole situation. I was dating him in the summer. It was a dating for about 3 months. You know,
Mhm.
like it did develop into something quote unquote serious. However, this is where it comes to show that sometimes when someone loses their job while you're dating them, it's better to pull the cord because, especially if you're in the early stages. Now, if you're neck deep in, if you're married, that's a different story, especially if you have the partnership and unionship that Carla and her husband have and that other women out there have. I was dating this guy, you know, he was a server. He was a server, servers survive off tip money. You know, they survive off tip money. I was dating him for like about 3 months. He lost his job halfway through the summer, and what ended up happening was he went from treating me like a queen, like an absolute queen, to almost resenting me. It's very interesting how the psychological mind of a man works once they're in survival mode. He almost ended up resenting me for the fact that he can no longer provide for me. He can no longer take care of me. And the standard was set from the beginning. He bought me Pandora earrings on the first day. He got me flowers. He took me to this wonderful restaurant and he was courting me properly throughout it. But once it hit that point where he lost his job, a switch happened in him. And I've never seen something like that in a man. It's fascinating how not all men, toxic men, will have this mindset of like, I hate my girlfriend now because I can't provide for her. I can't be the man I want to be. Some
And
men get scared because they have to step up, girl. Like
And
it's, yeah.
yeah, no, and I wanna go ahead and clarify that through my story too, because I don't think it's
Hmm.
that they're toxic. I just think that they become toxic because they're in survival mode. So they're carp how do you say the word?
Hmm.
Compartmentalizing us as a woman because we no longer become their priority. Their priority is survive, succeed, then get the girl. And so I'm glad that you walked away when you did because again, there's a lot of women who are like, oh, he lost his job, let me help him. And that's when our every inch of our being is like, let me provide for you, let me help you, let me do this for you. And I mean, I would have done the same thing, like, oh, okay, you lost your job, you need to figure it out. Okay, good. You do that. I'm gonna step away because obviously this relationship is gonna end bittersweet. I don't want
Yeah.
more that I have to heal from. Thank you for whining and dining me. Let's take our separate ways. I wish you the best of luck, and there's no harm there. He needs to figure it out. And again, rejection is redirection. You did what you needed to do. And now she shared her experience when in the dating, and I think that's the proper thing to do, ladies. If you're a girlfriend and boyfriend, that is the proper thing to do. Listen to that. Whenever your boyfriend and girlfriend are like really dating and then he loses his job, get the hell out of there. Okay, before you get attached. Now, this is kind of like what I did for through a little bit of my journey, right? So you guys all know that my husband was in the military, left the military. That was a condition that I had set before I accepted his marriage proposal. Through that year and a half, we were really in transition because we weren't sure if he was going to secure the career that he has now. When you are married, everything and anything is valid. When you are not married and you are boyfriend and girlfriend, courting or dating, you need to be extremely selective because it'll show you the trajectory of your entire relationship throughout that time. Because I chose someone who was already successful, he was confident, he had the dream, he had his dream car, he had a really good paying salary, he had stability, he had his own place, he had all these things. So he was at the peak of who he was as a man. Guess what he was going to do? He was going to choose the woman of his dreams, and I was that woman of his dreams for him. So I didn't have a lot of the problems that a lot of toxic men project onto their current girlfriends because I chose someone that was already at the top. And through how can you get there? It's through this healing journey and through this process of refining yourself as a woman. And sometimes like I wouldn't have been ready if I would have met my husband when I was 20 or 19. I would have not been ready. I was ready for him when I was 22. Same thing with my husband. My husband wasn't ready for me when he was 19, 20. He was ready for me when he was 23, 24. And so sometimes it's just a matter of timing and it's a matter of you being molded into the woman that you've been called to be. So be patient throughout that process. I'd much rather you be single. I'd much rather you be in the waiting season of your life than putting yourself in positions and in situations where you're constantly getting hurt, where you're constantly having to deal with other men who are toxic, who are literally, how Angelica said, they're vampires sucking the energy out of you and from you. Be patient through this process. And if you're in a relationship, boyfriend and girlfriend, and you are not happy where you are, please take the time to reflect. How Angelica was saying, reflecting is so important through this process so that you can make the changes necessary to have the bravery to find value and courage from yourself to walk away and truly choose your standards. I promise you, it is better to be single than to be with someone who is your worst enemy, your nemesis, if you will. So just take that. And Angelica, I'm not sure if you want to add anything to what I just said.
Yeah, some men sadly do hate and envy some women. Some partners, some I've seen this a lot in not just some of my relationships, but other people's relationships. Some boyfriends will resent and be envious of their own girlfriends. I noticed that, like Karla mentioned this, a long time ago, but she told me a lot of men will take advantage of women in STEM. They'll go after a specific prototype of women I think it just has to do with the fact that I don't know how to describe this. Like they, in a way, like they envy that ambition, that drive that those women have, and they want to benefit off it. They want almost like a free coach, like a free therapist, someone there for them all the time. And as someone who has gone through a lot of like career changes in her life, like I said, I was dating that guy over the summer. He always told me, he's all like, well, you're going to run off with a finance guy, or you're going to run off with a lawyer. And I think that men know when we can do better than them, when our drive is really there, when we have a lot of goals and ambition. And I always tell people this all the time, you have to date someone at your level. I'm not talking just financially, but like mindset level. Because if you date someone with such a poor mindset, or you date someone that has that very low self-esteem, that vampire energy, they're going to drag you down with them because they feel intimidated by you. Instead of elevating themselves, they just want to drag you down. And that's the issue I had with that guy. Apart from losing the job, a lot of it just had to do with the fact that we were just not compatible in the end. And it's okay, ladies, you live and you learn. You go on dates, have fun. And I feel like I had that mindset. I had to had an end goal at the end of each date. I'm like, I have to be in a relationship. No, have fun, date. I was courted. Obviously, it didn't end it the way I wanted to, but I learned a lot from that. It just taught me, hey, you got to pull the cord when a guy goes through survival mode. Like, I can do it. And my relationship of 2 years really took a toll on me. Now, when a man starts exhibiting toxic behavior, I'm just like, goodbye. It was nice knowing you. Just simply because I don't want to mess around and find out. My mom always says, you play with fire, you're going to get burned. You're going to get burned. Like, you don't want to mess around and find out.
And I'm just so again, I just want to hold this space. That's so funny because I think who says that? I think that's like super trending right now for the Wicked press tour. Like hold this space, but no, for real, hold this space for you because it was so hard for you in the beginning to even receive. It was
Yeah.
so hard for you to be able to like receive flowers, accept a date, receive gifts, receive in general. And so the fact that you're no longer trying to prove yourself shows tremendous growth. And I know that a lot of the ladies who are listening might still be like in that transition of like, I don't even know how to receive. I've never even been offered to receive a gift. Like, but as you get older, and not even get older because you can get older and like not grow as a person, but as you start to learn more about yourself and the balance between feminine energy, masculine energy, the yin and the yang, men and women, you start to realize, oh my gosh, I hold power just by being a woman. Because let me tell you something, ladies, we quite literally create life. We create life. We have the capability and possibility to create another human inside of us. And men see that. Men see that. And that's why, how Angelica was saying, sometimes very insecure, toxic men want to take advantage of women who are in STEM, very powerful women, because another thing is that a lot of these men understand and know that these women who are in STEM field tend to also not know their worth, tend to also be very insecure. Why? Because they've held on to the mindset of having to prove themselves all the time because their work has inevitably done that for them, especially if you're a woman in STEM, like you're consistently having to prove yourself. And one thing that I want you ladies to take away is that you need to learn how to turn it off, your work self from your real self. And the only way that you can do this is by investing in hobbies and investing in like truly your friendships, the connections that you have, and creating that safe space and safe community to be in your resting and nesting season. So that's like my biggest takeaway. And yes, be careful and be mindful of whenever a man is being envious of you, because another very commonly too, women grow faster than men. Like it is what it is. This is no hate to men at all. Like men benefit a lot more, and we know this from studies. Men benefit from being married more than women do. Men benefit from being married more than women do. Men benefit more from being with women than women being with men. And I'm thankful of this yin and yang that we have, because even though it is this way, their primary purpose of a man's life is to provide that sort of like sustainability and like lifestyle for them so that a woman can benefit as well. And so what we're seeing here is this equal, like this unbalanced of um I guess, of the genders. And yes, I'm promoting gender roles here. Like, I'm sorry, but you want a nuclear family? This is how you conserve a nuclear family, by preserving the responsibility of each gender. And so the reason why right now it's this imbalance is because men know our worth, and even men know their worth. They're taking advantage of women in STEM because they're like, I want an easy life. Let me go to the women in STEM because they're most likely insecure. They don't know their worth yet, so I can take advantage of that. So they see our worth. They understand and they know it. They just don't, because we don't know it, they consistently push our boundaries. They consistently hurt us in this way because we allow them. And so it takes courage to say, I don't want to get hurt anymore. Bye, cutting it off, just how Angelica
Mhm.
is doing it. So, ladies, know the difference. Know when enough is enough, and know how to truly build your standards from a healthy place. I'm not asking you to marry a billionaire, a millionaire. Like, no, you can marry a regular guy. I married a regular guy who had amazing, strong, stoic traits. And that has really, I mean, I'm living my best life. I'm living my dream life because of that. What we're asking you to do, what we're finding out, and Angelica's a single lady, like she's still in the dating market, and she's learning and she's having fun through this process of dating and learning. And I'm very proud of her. Like it's just a matter of perspective. She took a break. Now she's gonna go back whenever she's ready. And that's how it should be. So do not get discouraged of being in the dating market. Now you know a little bit of some insider tips that I tell Angelica. But Angelica, do you have anything else to add before we go into closing?
I will say, one huge thing I tell people is don't get discouraged by a couple of bad apples because there are a lot of very unhealthy people out there. But just because a couple of men haven't gone the way you want it to doesn't mean all men will be like that. It will only take one man to convince you that all men are not the same.
Mhm.
Because I do believe that there are wonderful men out there. A lot of them are not on the apps. A lot of them are not on the apps, honestly. A lot of them are working, they're hustling, they're making their money, honestly. A lot of them are providing for their families. Like, I feel like a lot of the time, sadly, a lot of the apps have become flooded with a lot of confused people, people that shouldn't be on there. People that are in relationships are on the apps, people who are not healed, people who are not ready to date. A lot of them just go on there to pass up the time and it ruins it for the rest of us who want to find a really genuine connection on there and build. I tell ladies this all the time. I tell my friends this, keep your standards high. Some men will tell you, some women in men's perspectives, they'll tell them that, oh, your standards are way too high. Your standards are way too high. No one's going to want you with those standards. I've been told that several times. And I don't take it personally. Karla told me this. Don't take whatever a man says personally. Never take what someone says personally because people will try to break you just because they're insecure of themselves. Their standards are too low. And I tell my mother this all the time. Well, they're saying that my standards are too high. They just can't reach them. They just can't reach them.
The term is stop asking someone to give you something that they don't even have for themselves.
Exactly.
Like
Exactly.
it's really that.
Yeah.
And anyway, continue. Sorry.
Yes. It's like think of it like you're window shopping. A lot of people can't afford that Louis, that Gucci. A lot of people can't afford that Fendi, but
Mhm.
there's people that can. There's people that can afford it. And just because you're expensive or your standards are too high doesn't mean that there won't be a man that will provide for you and will give you everything that you want. I'm not saying you have to have a ton of money. A lot, and I told Karla this. I got called a gold digger because I wanted a man to provide for me financially. And I always get, well, what do you bring to the table? And I like to throw this out a new man at this point because you're not it. Because a real man will not say that.
Exactly. And the reason why men have the audacity to ask this question, and we need to stop taking that question personally as well, is because they've never had a woman, like a good woman in their life. They've never seen what a woman truly brings because they've never seen it. That you have to write it out for them because they've never experienced it before. They've never seen it before. And this is what I say, it's giving I lacked a father figure. I always say that. I'm like, whenever they say that, it's giving I didn't have a father growing up. It's giving I didn't have a family growing up. It's giving I'm obviously not educated. Like, don't take it personally. Don't say what I just said. That's very, very rude. Unless they're rude to you, then like, you could say it. You know what? Um, I'll go ahead and answer your question, but it seems like I have to spell it out for you. Like, this is who I am as a woman. Like, and I completely understand why you might have this concern and this question because you're just showing me that you didn't have a father growing up. So I'll go ahead and explain, right? And so then, it'll take them a while for it to be like, oh my gosh, this girl's kind of like in an elegant way, but that's how you could do it to preserve your heart and your essence. And if you don't feel like entertaining that question, you don't have to, but just not taking things personally and really having fun with it will allow you to start just like letting things slide off of you, like just whatever. And so in regards to being called a gold digger, before we close this conversation, um, women have to be gold diggers. Are you kidding me? One of the things that actually in Margarita Nasanko's podcast that we had, I told her, I'm like, I don't know if this means that I'm a gold digger. I don't know if this is toxic of me to want this, but I can't be with someone who is not earning enough. Like I can't. Like my kitty is just like dry. Like I can't. Like I quite literally cannot. Like I can't. And she's like, no, that's actually very natural because you are meant to have children and children are expensive. Children are expenses. And if a man doesn't have the resources you need for your bloodline to continue, you are going to be turned off. So this term gold digger, just think about that. We have to preserve our bloodline, to preserve our children, to give, because we're choosing the father of our children when we marry, whenever we're dating and looking for the man that we're going to be building a life with, that is what's happening. So whenever a man calls you a gold digger, just say, don't even say anything. Just like kind of laugh about it and be like, sure, whatever. They don't get to know the knowledge that you and I both know. They don't get to experience the kind of caliber of a woman that we are. And therefore, they will have to deal with that on their own. And hopefully, they don't get a bloodline unless they mature. Because the reason why we're continuously having these problems is because we're impregnating, like we're giving the wrong people babies. Like that is why we are having these problems. We are popping out children that shouldn't be popped out, like from the father figure that shouldn't be even popped out of. And again, if you did this with ignorance, I hope I don't get canceled for this. If you did this with ignorance, like you are forgiven, we're not talking about you. This is not about you. We're talking about the women who never grow, who never aspire to be better, who never aspire to educate themselves about these things. And a lot of them, truthfully, don't even know because they're in survival all the time, all the time. And so this is why we create this space. This is why we have these conversations to break the pattern. Let's stop giving babies to the men who don't deserve to have a lineage, period. Like that's up on period. Anyway,
Mic drop.
what's
Mic
your
drop.
last sentence? What's the last sentence you would like to say?
I agree. When someone calls you a gold digger, don't take it personally. They just honestly, they think that gold diggers apparently are after, plates of chicken, food, when that's not the case. The true gold diggers, the true ones, right? The real ones. Those women are after property, houses,
Hmm.
money. We as women, me and Karla, we're after a
Family.
man with mindset. We're after a man with mindset. We're
Mhm.
after men who know how to provide and protect for their women. I
Of
believe there's different levels of the gold digger pyramid.
course.
There's different levels of the gold digger pyramid. But I feel like men get it twisted, and it's usually the men that don't have money that will say this. I'll probably get canceled. That's fine. Honestly, because I'm going to say this with my chest. It's usually the men that have limited to no financial security that will project that insecurity onto women because they feel like we're going to take their pennies from their 401k. Like
That
we're
doesn't
not going to,
exist.
that
That
doesn't
doesn't
exist.
exist yet.
It doesn't exist. I think it's ridiculous. And it just has come to show how masculinity has gone in waves the past couple of years. Even my father has said that from what he's seen with dating culture nowadays, it's very saddening because the masculine culture has really taken a shift. There's a whole like rabbit hole we can go down as to why it happened, but then we will truly get canceled.
No, no,
But
easily,
honestly,
because we're in a world where there's no faith, where there's no God-fearing men, where there's no spirituality. Easy. easy, where there's no respect for the gender roles, where we've been fed so much by propaganda. There's so many different things. Like we're not, like you said, it's it goes eons, and I can point to it, but that's like another conversation for a different day. Because the more research that I do on this dynamic, on just sociology in general, it becomes more and more clear that the reason why we're all so lost, specifically men are going through this, I think, harder than women because we woke up and we're like, yeah, no, we don't want to suffer anymore. Yeah, no, yeah, we're too pretty for this. We're not doing this. However, men, they don't have the support system that we do because it's still, by the way, I don't mind that men aren't able to get emotional. Controversial. I don't mind that men aren't able to get emotional. I don't want an emotional man. I don't want a soft man. I don't want someone that can be like, this is what I feel. This is how you said that me. Uh, no, I don't want that. Okay. I can't. I can't. I just can't. Again, Kitty, like, I cannot be with someone that's like super elaborate on their feelings. However, the way that men do grow though is by, hey man, look at this. I just hunted this animal. I just got this new like I don't know. I can't say it because I don't want to again get canceled, but I just got this new car. I just invested in this like in I just invested my money in this business. I just started up this business. Like that's how they grow and that's how they can have these conversations that we're having, but in men lingo. But because there's no community for them, I feel like it's worse for them than for us women. Um, they can't. Like it's either, yeah, that's a whole separate topic, but yes, to finish the conversation, I agree with what you're saying, and I want to end with saying thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you so much for being on the show and for being vulnerable with the ladies today, because it genuinely, I know that there's going to be a lot of women who are going to benefit from hearing your story and also realizing that they might be wrong, that they might have been taking dating in a in a different way. Oh, before I forget, last thing, because me and Angelica did talk about this. Ladies, and I encourage Angelica, and I'm going to encourage all of you singles out there as well. I have connections now to casting producers, and I got insight on reality TV show series on like Love is Blind, on Love Island, on like different infidelity shows or different relationship shows. And so one thing I will say is if there's a casting producer saying, "Hey, I want you to be a part of this uh Netflix show or whatever," do it. Why? Because I learned that they actually vet the men for you. So they go through all the criminal records, they see like if they have a job, like they have to be sustainable human beings to be able to go on these shows. So I'll post the casting producer that I know personally. I'll go ahead and post that on my IG, on my Instagram, so that you ladies who are single, I encourage you to be on the lookout for reality TV shows because not only are they very popular, but it can open a lot of opportunities and doors for you, not just with your love life, but with your financial security, with your entire life as a whole. And yes, it's vulnerable. Yes, there will be people all over the world talking about your response to things. However, que no te digan y que no te cuenten, meaning don't wait, like YOLO, like you only live once. And believe me, it's going to benefit you more than hinder you. So take it or leave it. Angelica, thank you so much for being a part of this experience. I enjoyed our conversation. And the last sentence before we close out.
I guess I could say, girl, we need to make more of these podcasts because we have a lot to talk about. Like the tea is real. No, um, our dating culture right now is it's kind of in the trenches, as I like to tell people. It's kind of in like rock bottom. It's very interesting how it's changed over time. It has done this really weird shift, but I tell people this: don't lose hope. There is someone out there. There is the other piece of your apple out there, as my mom says. There is someone out there. Believe me, it just takes one person. I'm still finding my person. I'm still finding my person. I have a good feeling about this year. I have faith in God, faith in the universe that things will come about and flourish in the way they're supposed to. I have a really good feeling about this year. I did a lot of praying before, the clock hit 2025. And you have to be very faithful. You have to believe in yourself. Don't let people tell your standards are too high. They just can't meet them. That's simply it. They just can't meet them. And why would you want to settle for someone? Like, as my dad says, don't settle. Don't settle for, don't date losers. That's literally
Don't
it.
date
That's wise
losers.
words from
Well,
from my father.
exactly. Don't date losers, and that's how we're gonna end today's episode. Thank you so much, and stay tuned for more. Bye bye.
Bye bye.